Thank you. I now call on Michael Russell to wind up this debate. Cabinet Secretary, you have until 5:05.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Let me start with the positives in this debate and to say to the other parties, with the exception of the Conservatives, I think my opening speech was very clear that I want to debate and discuss some of the key issues that the committee has identified. I think there are areas, and this has been my approach to every bill that I've ever brought to this chamber, that this bill can be improved and developed, and we will find a way to do so. I note the points that have been made by a variety of members across the chamber. I think the Stage 1 report has some very important issues within it, which we can respond to from all the committees, and we will do so. We won't agree on everything. One thing that's common across every bill I've ever been involved in is that there is always a debate and a discussion about the levels of subordinate legislation, a matter which actually to most people outside this chamber seems entirely arcane, but I know it is very important to members of this chamber, and I think we're going to have that discussion and dispute, and I think we will find a way through it. But what I want to reflect upon in the few minutes I have available to me is the extraordinary speeches from the Conservatives. I think Sarah Boyack used that word, and she is quite right to use it. Let us start by remembering why we are here. This chamber passed by an overwhelming majority a continuity bill. It was a bill that had keeping pace powers. And that bill was, with one very, very small exception, not in this area, entirely within the competence of this Parliament. And the UK Conservative government changed the law to outlaw that bill. That is what the Supreme Court found. They changed the law to outline that bill. So we are here repeating what we have done because the UK Conservative government, backed by a minority in this chamber, managed to overrule a piece of legislation which had been passed by an overwhelming majority. So that is why we are here. And in addition, we are here, I would say to Mr. Burnett, we are here using the valuable time that he would spend with his constituents because of the UK Tory government. So I hope he will take this issue up with his colleagues in the UK Tory party and blame them for the fact that we are having to come back here. And he should blame them for something else too. Mr. Burnett has talked about the waste of time and money that Brexit has been. Oh, indeed, I agree with him. I agree with him to the tune of £200 billion, which has been the cost of Brexit. I agree with him because I have spent a great deal of the last 4 years engaged in this, and I would much rather I hadn't been, because the people of the country in which I live voted against Brexit. And I have had to spend that time, as we have all had to spend that time, on something against the wishes of our constituents. So please don't remind me of the waste and time. Go and remind your Conservative colleagues. Now, I have to say that I have a life full of enjoyable instances and excitements. And I go straight from this debate today to a meeting of the JMC-EN, in which I shall no doubt hear many of the same arguments put by the UK Tory party. And it will allow me a further opportunity to wonder, as I have spent this afternoon wondering, at the current state of the Tory party. Mr. Lockhart's contribution reminded me of that line, I think, from Alice Through the Looking Glass. If I had a world of my own, everything would be nonsense. Because he was living entirely in a world of his own. It is a completely upside-down world in which he is living. No, thank you, please. I am standing the right way up, and I am going to continue. On that matter. So allow me to deconstruct the nonsense that I heard earlier this afternoon. And there are three particular items that I will deconstruct. The first one is, and I have to raise this point because it is a point for this chamber of great significance. Twice now, Mr. Lockhart in this chamber has contended that the Internal Market Bill bases its powers upon the frameworks and is there to support the frameworks. The official report will make it entirely clear. It's happened twice now, happened in a previous debate. And at that time, I asked Mr. Lockhart to correct the official report because it was not true. The bill does not refer to the frameworks in that way. And he repeated it this afternoon. He doubled down on an assertion about the Internal Markets Bill, which is not true. And that is a very serious matter, because this bill is of enormous... No, I want to finish this point, and I'll give way. This bill is of enormous importance. It is taking powers away from this Parliament, and we must tell the truth about it. Please, Mr. Lockhart, tell the truth about it. Address the issue of the Internal Market Bill. I have given him the opportunity. I've given him the opportunity to correct something that was said twice in this chamber and has not been corrected. Let the record show that. Now, the second issue that we have here is very important, because the issue of jobs and the retention of jobs. And the argument from the Conservatives has been, all afternoon, that in actual fact, high standards cost jobs. That has been the argument we've heard. And the argument is, if you lower those standards, if you become a deregulator, because that is what the argument is, then you will create jobs in Scotland. It is not true. It is utterly counterproductive. It is throwing away all the advantages we have in order to create jobs, and they won't be created, because they simply won't be created. So that is also an area in which the Chamber has been woefully misinformed this afternoon. But then there is a third and very significant point, and it is this: the issue of being a rule taker. How can any Conservative, with the Internal Markets Bill in front of them, the most massive undermining of devolution since the start of devolution, don't take my word for it, take the word of Lord Hope, the former Deputy President of the Supreme Court, take the word of the Anglican primates across these islands, take the word of any of those members of the House of Lords who have spoken upon it in these matters. Take their word for it. And yet, apparently, that is not true, because Mr. Lockhart says it isn't true. A rule taker. A rule taker. That is what, that is what the Conservative UK government is seeking to make this Parliament, to take away our powers to do things, to take away our powers to make rules and to undermine them. So I just have to say, after this debate, the state of the Scottish Conservative Party is woeful. It is utterly woeful, but it is worse than woeful, because what we've heard this afternoon is an attempt to defend the indefensible. This bill we are debating because the previous bill was sabotaged by the UK Tory government with the consent of the Tory party in Scotland. And now black is white and white is black. I am grateful for the members across this chamber who have shown their commitment to take this bill through. We will take this bill through, but it will be part of a process of saying to the people of Scotland, we have the right in Scotland to make our own choices about what we do. And we will not be told not to do it. We will not be cheated out of it by people who care nothing for this chamber and everything for their colleagues south of the border. It is a shameful position, and it will not stand.